Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first ever Firebase Fridays. I just kind of had this idea. I was like, I like Firebase. I like Fridays. Let's just put them together and see what happens. So this is a brand new show that I'm doing, as I just said. And what the whole goal is that I'm going to demonstrate something Firebase-y every Friday or so. And this for this first one ever, I'm going to do the new Auth Emulator, which is super amazing. If you were at the Firebase Summit, you probably saw the announcement about it. It's really cool. You can run Firebase authentication locally on your machine, which is great for testing, great for local development. So we're going to kind of show all those things. And also make sure to get your questions in, because in between the demos, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to be answering any questions that come up, because I can't just do this by myself. It feels weird just staring into a camera. You might feel like I'm talking to you, but I'm really just staring at a camera. So let's make it real. Just get in the chat and drop me your comments. So the first thing I want to do is let's get my screen shared, and let's go into what's going on. So this right here is just my editor. Let's kind of go through the structure to get you understanding of everything that's happening. So it's really simple. I tried to make it complicated, but I failed at it, so I took it back. I was going to do like this roll-up TypeScript and post CSS with Tailwind and all that, and then I was like, oh, let's not do that. That's for another day. So the way this one works is that it's just a very simple static site on my public folder. I'll set up Firebase. I am using the basic build of Tailwind CSS. If you're not familiar with Tailwind CSS, you should check it out. There's this brand new version they released yesterday, I think, or the day before, something like that. And I haven't yet to use it, so we'll see how that goes. I'm on the brand new version, and for the first time ever. And all this really is, we have an index.html, and then we have this index.js. So when you are using the emulators, there's actually a really sweet, cool new feature that I really love we have. So if you've used Firebase hosting before, you know that we set up these double underscore, we call them like reserved URLs, as in you actually can't, if you created a double underscore file, that would not work. We would not serve it. I've actually never tried doing it myself, but it's a no-no. You don't do it. And so inside of here is where we serve, underneath the Firebase folder, it's where we serve these Firebase URLs, so the Firebase libraries. And so I'm importing app, auth, Firestore, and then init.js. So init.js traditionally will initialize your Firebase app with your current project that you're using, but there's this new version there where you say query param use emulator is true, and it actually is super smart, knows you're running the emulator, and it will actually connect to the emulator ports magically. So I am a huge fan of that. It just simplifies everything. So this is how you connect to the emulators with the Firebase CLI. Makes everything really, really easy. And so let me go now and another thing too is I'm doing type module here. If you have not seen type module before, it's just actual like JavaScript modules in the browser. This wouldn't work in like IE 11, but has really good usage though, like surprisingly good usage. If someone, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but if someone out there wants to do a can I use modules and see what the percentage of browsers out there that can use modules, you should drop that in the comments, because I would like to quote that stat because it's surprisingly high. And so we're going to do this, not that we're really importing or even exporting anything, but it actually works like a defer. So all these run in order, which is very important. We want them all to run in order. We'll mostly want this one to run first and then this one to run last. These two could often fire, so they could happen in any other order. That's fine. But yeah, and then index.js. So Firebase is going to be attached to the window, and we're going to do stuff. And so this is the site I have so far. These are, you might be like, whoa, that's a lot of CSS classes. And it is. And that's not how a final production site would be, but for this prototyping, it's really great. And I can say like, hey, min H screen is just setting the body to 100% view height. So, 100% VH, BG gray 100, set it to a certain background to this lighter gray. Containers, a responsive container. MX auto, margin auto. BG white, H64, I think it's like 16 rems, something like that, I don't know. And P16, just padding across all, top, right, left, bottom. That's actually how I remember how CSS goes for the shorthands of things like paddings and margins. I'll be at my desk and I'll just be typing, and then I'll be like, wait, top, right, left, or top, right, bottom, left. And that's how I remember it. Fun fact. So yeah, and then text XL, make this really big. And so we have this button, BT sign in. And what I want to start doing is showing off stuff with the emulator. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to show how to get connected to it, which I kind of did with that module, or the use emulator equals true. That does it for us, but I'll still show how you would manually do it. And then we're going to take a look at the emulator UI and see how we can manage users in there. So the first thing we do is, like, we know that Firebase is available on the window here, so we can do that. So let's grab that button. So BTN, what did I call it? I've already forgotten. BTN sign in. Not using a framework or anything today. Like I said, I'm just trying to keep it simple. Thought about using Preact. I really like Preact. It's really tiny. It's cool. I don't know. What frameworks are you all using Firebase, Lynn? Let me know in the comments. All right, so BTN sign in. Let's add an event listener, a click. And let's spell click right, because it won't work if you don't spell it right. And then there is click event. And inside of here, this is where we're going to do some auth things. So what's cool is that if you were using the auth emulator without connecting to it the automagic way, you would say firebase.auth.use emulator, just like that. That's it. And then you just type in the port that it's on. And so, sorry, not S, it's going to be HTTP, and it's usually like localhost 1001, I think, is like the default port. And that's it. Like, that's what you do. If you're using like a Webpack or a rollup where you like, I have a dev build and a prod build, in your dev environment, you can do things where you say like, hey, if I'm in dev, then include this Firebase script that initializes the dev one. If not, then use the prod one. So that doesn't use emulator. So that is a really nice way to connect and make sure you're not connecting to the emulator in production. So that's it. That's the one-liner for the emulator. So when we log in, we're going to say firebase.auth.sign in with redirect. And then this needs to take in a provider, and that is going to be a provider, which is a new firebase.auth.google auth provider. Now, this will log us in, and this is going to show us some magic here. So I'm gonna leave this at that for now. And what we want to do is, am I running it? Yeah, I'm running it. Okay. Let's clear out of here. So what we would normally do is, and it's kind of small. Let me see if I can bump this up. Okay. All right. So if you have Firebase installed, which I install it locally, ooh, I bumped it up a little too much. Okay, let's bump that down. Ooh, that's just going crazy, and I don't know what that is. All right. Let's. Like my laptop's just like burning crazy hot right now. All right, so if I do node modules.bin Firebase, this is I'm not a big global modules person. Let me know in the comments if how you manage your modules, if you use npx or like what you do. I'm always interested in how people are managing their modules. I tend to put everything locally just because it's, you tend to break yourself less, and that's fun to not be broken. So here with .bin/Firebase, what you would do is you would, before you did anything, you would init, and then you can say Firebase init, and you actually can say emulators. And then from here is, I've already initted the emulators, but I kind of want to show you what happens. You get this great big, orangey Firebase. And because I'm so zoomed in, I have to do this. So these are the ones I've selected. I'm doing the Auth Emulator, Functions, Firestore, Hosting. I haven't selected Database and PubSub, but I could do those. And then what you can see right here are the ports. So Auth is running at 9099. That's at not 9001, 9099. Functions 5001, 8080 for Firestore. So these are all the things that are going to be running on your machine. These are the ports that they run on and how we connect to them. It asks if I want to download the emulators now. No, I don't, because I already have. But yeah, that's it. And once you've done that, you're connected to the emulators. And to actually run it, I have mine set to npm run start. But if I go to my package.json, we'll look at that script. And right now, I have this dash project because I was debugging something earlier. Because I was debugging something earlier, but I don't actually need it, but it's good to know you can pass in any arbitrary project with the project flag, and it's just Firebase Emulators :start. So I'm going to do npm start, and then the magic's going to happen. So this is going to boot everything up, and then I'm going to go into the browser, and we're just going to kind of take a look at the stuff that's going on. So once this gets running. And then when I do the switch from code editor to browser, this is when I'm going to go and take a look at all the great comments that you all have left me. All right, so let's see here. Is it running? Okay, great. Yeah, so I love this grid, by the way. This grid's super helpful. Don't just gloss over it. You should look at it. We can see what port it's running on, and then it gives you these cool links to show you, hey, it's running. These are the emulators running. These are the host and port. And if you wanted to go into the UI, that's how you do that. All right, so let me go back to this and let me take a look at the comments. I'm going to be scrolling up. Let's see here. Right, so people are excited. Alex, NP, Sadie. Thanks for coming. Just getting into Tailwind yourself. It's very fun. I like Tailwind. Oh, hello, James. 93%. Oh, wow. Look at all of you with the numbers. I forgot I asked you to do it, and you did it. That just warms my heart. Yeah, look at that. 93%. So if you use native JS modules today without like Webpack rollup or anything like that, you would cover 93% of your users. And that's pretty amazing. That doesn't mean like ignore the 7%, and maybe the 7% don't even visit your site, but that's amazing that JS modules have come that far. We got a lot of Angular, Vue. Oh, vanilla JS is fine. Yeah, these are all good things. Okay, so I'm going to stop this one and let's go share the other screen now. Where is that one? This one. Okay. All right, so now we are here in the browser. This is a beautiful page. Look at it, it's just beautiful. No, not at all. But it's kind of cool that I didn't write any CSS really, and that's there. All right, so now I'm trying to find that browser. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's take a look at the emulator really quick. Let's do that. I was testing before. This is a test user I have, but all right, so let's look at what's going on. We have the overview page, so it's showing everything that's running. And so we want authentication. We can see I already have this test user up and running. I can go in here and I can add users manually. But what we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to see what it's like to do this. So we're going to sign in. And the cool thing is that we're signing in with Google locally. So we're doing OAuth locally. So if I click sign in, I probably should refresh my page. All right, so if I click sign in, okay, it's not working because it's live and things don't work live. So what did I do wrong? Console. Oh, Google Auth Provider is not a function. So is it? I thought it was that. Let's see here. Oh, I know why. I know exactly why. I'm going to fix that really quick. I called it as a function, but the providers are on the namespace, not on the instance. That is a common thing I do. And can you all see? You can see the console. Good. All right. That is very useful. I wasn't sure if you could see that or not. All right, cool. And something that is good to call out here is that I didn't write this. The Auth Emulator drops that into every app, which you might think is frustrating, but it's to us, it's really important to showcase while you're in development mode that you are not connecting out to a public instance. We write that on there. It is part of showing it's a big security thing to let people know that they're not trying to mess with prod credentials or prod people's stuff. Like this is development versus test. So this is a nice visual reminder that, hey, we're working in development mode. All right, so now I'm going to click sign in, and this is cool. I love this. This is so awesome. So I click sign in. So click sign in, and let's see, did I just lose myself? Let me see if I can. It crashed on me. All right, let me I'm still looking at the thing, but all right, the stream thing just dropped. Okay, so here is the I love this part. This is my whole favorite part of using the emulators, Auth Emulator, that is. I can close out of this because I don't need that right now, but I can use this current user I have, so foo@example.com, or I can go and add a new account. And this is so cool, is that you can click auto generate and we get this interesting information. So mountain otter, we can click it again. Peach, olive, algae, mountain orange. Mountain orange sounds very good. Sounds very Colorado. And now if I click sign in, I'm not detecting that auth state, but that user's there. And let's say if I click sign in again, there they are. So if I'm logging in and out, all these users that are Google users, they show up in this page. And so I guess I didn't take the time to, let's like actually follow the trail here of what's happening. And so when you click sign in, or when you do your sign in with redirect with Google, with any third-party provider, this is a local environment. So we're not going to go out to the actual network OAuth request. We're not going to go through Google or Twitter or whomever provider, because that wouldn't be local. That has to go over the network. So we don't do that. So what we do is we emulate the OAuth flow, the OAuth environment. So it doesn't actually have to go out to the real screen for development mode. You can just say like, hey, what information would I expect back? And so that's what this screen does. And it all runs locally, local host right up here and everything. And then when you generate your new Chicken Mountain user, you click sign in, and then it comes back. And then if we do a refresh, here are all the users in the user store. And we can go and look at them, edit them, disable them, delete them. We can delete them all with this clear all data button. There's so much development tools and stuff for us to do. So this is a much nicer way of developing. And then what's cool here is these Uids. This is where cool stuff can happen. So with this Uid, we can go out to Firestore, and loads collections, and we can start this. We could say, all right, let's say this was, I promised myself I wasn't going to do a to-do app, but no, we're not going to do to-dos. We're not going to do to-dos. I'm going to say events. Let me all know in the comments what stock like canon app that everybody understands, but that should like, we can't make it today because I only got a little more time, but maybe in the future Firebase Friday, something we should make. Like, tell me, what app ideas do you have? Simple, universally understandable, and it's not a to-do app. Or a tasks app. Tasks and to-dos is the same thing. And not a grocery store app, because a grocery store app is a to-do app, and a task app that's just about groceries. So let me know what your ideas are. All right, so collection ID, events. Let's get a calendar app. And this document ID, you can say like, this is a random one, and let's just say name is like, that's a good event. What do we do now? I don't know, watch TV show. And then you could say UID, and now this belongs to that user. And it works locally, which is really, really cool. And this is just how you would develop if you were talking to a project that's hosted in the cloud by Firebase, like an actual network connected project. That now this development flow, it can work 100% locally with sandbox data. So I know that something I've always disliked is that you have to be very clear about managing your test users versus managing your actual production users. So you usually use a separate project for that. You got to make, if you get a lot of anonymous users, you got to delete all those a lot. That's, never, there's some tooling for that, but I prefer just not to worry about it. And now you don't, because the Auth Emulator users, they don't have to stick around for a long time. It's just all through testing. So this is a big quality of life improvement. So now I guess I'm going to go look at some of the comments. Let's see here. I'm excited to see if people had some. Austin has a question. Austin says, having some cores issues with using third-party providers with the Auth Emulator, mainly using sign-in with pop-up. I know sign-in with pop-up is always a little crazy. I'd love to hear more about that. Just like what I usually use redirect because pop-up kind of has problems across certain browsers. People don't like pop-ups. But yeah, I'd like to hear more about that. And yes, the Angular Fire docs have not been helpful with the Auth Emulator yet. James Daniels is working on that, but soon. Expect some stuff there soon. With Angular 11 coming out, there's been a lot of work making sure that Firebase, Angular Fire, and Angular 11 work well, but getting the emulators tied in, all this stuff just kind of landed. Angular 11, Auth Emulator, all this new stuff. So it's going to get in there. Mark Thompson, what's up, Mark? Always good seeing you. The MP Complete likes the user generator. Yes, Faker. I think it uses Faker behind the scenes. Mark says no to do. So yeah, Mohammed Notes app. Alex says he's tested with the Auth Emulator and it works perfectly. Okay, but there's a doubt. Is there a way to share the same UID between two Firebase projects on the emulator? By Firebase projects, do you mean like, okay, do I have two projects and like, are you running them at the same time? Are they two different like auth stores? You have to let me know because there's two different answers. So yeah, what do you mean by two different projects? Is it across like almost like two different apps, like two different users? Because you wouldn't I need to know your situation a little more because that changes things. Kevin Lloyd, a light meter app. That is pretty interesting. Jeff Hewlett was working on some type of light camera app. A booking fight app or a booking flight app. I wouldn't know how to book fights. I don't know. But flights, I think there's a lot of APIs about that. Can users now be saved between emulator restarts? Daniel, we're going to get into that one next. I wanted to be more structured with this, but this is the first time I've ever done a Firebase Friday. So I was not as structured as I should have been. So I'm learning a lot in real time right now because that's how I do things in real time. Mohammed, any thoughts on WASM based frameworks? No. WASM is one of those things that a lot of my coworkers, they work with WASM, and then I see it, and then I'm like, I kind of learn about it, and then that's it. So I personally don't have any need for WASM myself, or I haven't ran into a use case for it. I think it's amazing, but it's just I could probably learn more about it, but I don't know. I like CSS, HTML, and JS, and that's what solves my problems. But I do think WASM is amazing. All right. He did say flight. It was a flight app, not a fight app. It could be unboxing. I don't know. Okay. All right. So let's go. And so what we've done so far is that we connected out to the emulator. We created users inside of the emulator. There was a button. It was blue. That happened. And now what I want to do is I want to see how do we seed users? Because let's go and I'm going to share this. Yeah, let's keep this browser going and keep the questions going. Like the way I try to work on the questions, like I said, is that I write the code or do the demo, and then in between switching, or when there's like a good break, I go and I go back and kind of knock through all the questions. So keep them coming. All right, so let's see here. All right, so we're inside here. What I'm going to do is behind the scenes, you're not going to be able to see this. I am going to turn off the emulator and restart it. So this is going to immediately kind of yell at us and be like, whoa, what's going on? You stopped the emulator. That's not good. So I'm going to restart it now. Just kind of get it booted up because I want to show kind of like what happens between restarts. And what I want to show is we get these users disconnected, which I do love that it doesn't just pretend that the emulator is still running. It's one of the UI engineers had this idea, and I thought that was great to give people that visual feedback, because visual feedback is like one of the number one I don't want to say things, but one of the indicators to people that things are or are not working. All right, sweet. So we have this, but if we refresh, you saw, whoa, what happened? All my users are gone. Users are not persisted across sessions. So I tore it down, built it back up, no more users. And in certain situations, that's exactly what you want, because like I was saying before, you don't want, these are test users. They are not always needed, or sometimes you just want to do this and you don't want to have to manage test users across sessions, across time. It's really nice to have ephemeral testing, but at the same time, it can be kind of inconvenient to always have to deal with an empty test store. So for Firestore in the real-time database, we have command line flags that allow you to seed with an import flag on boot. We currently do not have that for auth, although it's high on our roadmap of things we want to provide for the Auth Emulator. We just launched it 3 weeks ago, something like that. And so we want to do it, but we're not quite there yet. So in the meantime, there are a couple things we can do. So here is I'm going to take you to the docs, because the docs are great for this. So the docs show, and I'm doing web, but if you're an iOS or Android developer, you can see that there's also the emulator works not just for web. And so it also works for the admin SDK. So one of the things you can do, if I can, where is the, yes, so is this for email? Yeah, so one of the things you can do is you can actually talk to these local endpoints and send post messages to them to seed your users. So feasibly here, you could just store your users in like a JSON format. And then when the emulator boots up, you can run a node script or some type of script that just sends post requests to create your user and just seeds them all up. And since it's all local, it happens really quick. And so this one's for email, like style passwords or anonymous authentication. So I'm not going to get into this one. I'm going to do another one because I think it just kind of tests a little easier. Is when you're doing OAuth, you can actually script your OAuth users. And so in this case, you can say firebase.auth, that's sign in with credential. And then here's the Google Auth provider we used, but you can say .credential. And then from here, you pass in your own your own custom information. So I'm going to just copy this because that's why docs are there. They're there for copy and pasting. And we're going to go into the editor. So let me go and share this screen. Let's go into, all right. So now I'm here in the I'm in the VS Code editor. And what I am doing here is I'm going to just paste this code in. So what this does is that by calling .credential, we can provide whatever user we want. So foo.example.com, email verified true, all this stuff, and that will happen on a click. Or let's see here. Yeah, so we'll do that. We wouldn't even have to do it on the click. We could just do it. Let's keep that just in case we want it, but let's go in here. And what this will do is it'll actually return a promise, which is a user, I think, or might be a result. I can never remember. Let's say result. And I'm just going to drop a debugger in there because I like to freeze in on it. So save that. And now I'm going to switch back to the browser to demo that. Share the screen. Window. where am I? Okay, so now we're here, still at the docs. Let me move that to the app, give it a, open this, inspector, do a nice hard refresh. And once we have a refresh, oh, we have a error, but let's see what that, oh no, it wasn't that, no, I don't think it was an error. Let's see what's going on. We pull this all the way to the left and we have this result. And if we say console, it says 400, but I wonder why that is. So let's take a look, because that should be in a catch. I wonder if I'm just doing something wrong. We can see we have our provider ID. This is Google, so this is an actual, no, yeah, that's right. It is a result with a user. And I'm not sure why this is 400, but this user, result.user, and this result.user, it has a UID. And the result.user, we could have, I don't think it has a display name, we could have given it a display name, has an email. And so this is just as if that we did click that button with that data, we can seed that up. You could, like I said, you could go and create a script until we provide you a scripting way of doing it. Or just like I did right here, or actually I don't have the code there, but like let's go into the sources, just like how I did right here, down here, you could just have that into a separate script that gets included in development that says, hey, whenever this page loads, it just logs in with this user. And, it's just a nice way of, not having to go and create it all the time. You kind of just paste that in and then boom, you're logged in with this test user. And so that makes for a really great development workflow. The cool thing about this is that we didn't talk to a network this entire time. We set up the emulator. We wrote code that connected to the emulator, or we actually used the JS emulator connector code. And then we were able to just write auth code as we normally would. There was no real crazy specific emulator things that we did other than that one line. And from there, we were able to talk to this local UI, works with the database. It works as you normally would, but it doesn't go over the network. It's faster. You don't have to worry about billing. It's a nice, great sandbox environment, and you can just log your users in without test users. So that is, I think I was trying to condense these down to 30 minutes. I would love to see, maybe we might do the next one for like an hour with a more beefy demo. I talk a lot, so I think that takes up a lot of time. But let's go into the comments. So let's see what's going on here. Michael asked if there's a Firebase library for AppScript. There is a community one that's really good. I cannot remember the developer's name who built it, but it's very good. I wish I did because it's a great one. I use it frequently. I did a Firebase productivity tip #AskFirebase video once where I wrote an app script where I synced Firestore data to a spreadsheet. So you should check that out. So somewhere on the Firebase YouTube channel, productivity tips, I do a whole tutorial of how to do that. Yeah, Firebase and AppScript is really great. Let's see here, going up. Alex said you have two different apps. So if you have two different apps, you tend to still want to have one auth instance to even speak to two different places. You don't want to like duplicate users across auth. That gets really messy and probably breaks pretty quickly. So I guess you could use like, this would get crazy, but you could technically, I think I'd need a more auth expert than me here. I think you could use custom auth to maybe authenticate, but then that's like a third authentication. You're better off usually just having one authentication, like user store, and that can even talk to another Firebase project and not use its Firebase auth component. So that's one way. You really want to simplify the amount of places where you're storing users. So that's what I recommend there. Let's see. Daniel likes the user scripting. It's very good. Yeah. Raphael, thanks for stopping by. NP Complete us. If anyone knows where Firebase Discord, there is not a Firebase Discord that I know of, but there is a Firebase community Slack. So if you do firebase-community.appspot.com, you can join the Firebase Slack community. Lots of developers in there. So I recommend doing that one. And Mohammed asked if Firebase Auth can be used to authenticate on a custom backend server. Yes, it can. Firebase authentication is super flexible. We have our provided authentication methods like we did today with Google, email and password, anonymous. There's so many different ways to authenticate. But if you want to use it as a token verifier, you can do that as well. So you can actually have Firebase authentication mint tokens on your own server. The admin SDK handles that. So if you have your own database or your own system somewhere hosted on your own servers, you can go and use Firebase authentication to be able to sign tokens on the server. And then you can even still use the client library to log in. And so it's really nice. It allows you to sort of glue together these disparate systems in a very secure fashion. So yes, check out the docs for custom auth or with or the admin SDK. They'll inevitably sort of kind of go down the same path. Let's see here. Paul asks, how do I save the emulator's state? Right now, unless Yuchen is watching and he's like, wait, no, you can do this. I don't think we can do that yet, Paul, but you can write that sort of that code I showed. You can store that locally, and then you can seed when you boot up. You can always boot up with that specific information. In the future, we do want to have an import and an export like we do with Firestore and real-time database. So hold tight before we have our nice bespoke way of doing it. But for now, you can just save that data locally, and then just when you boot up, just sign those users in or script those users in. Austin says redirect works perfectly, but throwing pop-up there is CORS error. Okay, you know what? Go to the where would you put this one? I guess if you you could put this in the Firebase JS SDK and GitHub file an issue. We'll take a look into that. That's good to know. And Paul wants me to explain how custom claims work. So I don't have the time because I need to sign up. But custom claims, I guess, in the quick way of explaining custom claims. I actually want to do a full Firebase podcast, which, by the way, if you have not subscribed to the Firebase podcast, I recommend you do. I think there's a brand new one coming out today that's recapping a lot of the things that we did with Firebase Summit. I host it. I really like doing it. I release usually about one episode a week, so you should subscribe to that. I talk a little bit about custom claims in the Firebase podcast too, Paul. And so the way custom claims work is it's effectively telling the server, the Firebase Auth server, to give this user a special attribute, a claim, and they can be anything. That's why it's custom. So in the Firebase Summit, Todd Kerpelman built a site where there was premium content for paid users, and he used the Stripe extension to set that up. And the custom claim was whether they were a premium user. And you could see in the client code, you could tap into the auth and the user and see that they had that premium user claim. And even though it's on the client, you know that you can actually check against it because that is signed by the server. And if you go and let's say you update data into Firestore, when you update, you can actually tap into that custom claim in security rules. So custom claims really makes it easy to write simpler security rules because you're able to add roles effectively or special attributes to a user and then secure based upon those rules. So that's custom claims shortly. There's a lot more to it. And like I said, I really think I might just do like a full podcast on it. So stay tuned. All right, last question I'll go through. Mohammed says, I like having Firebase handle the auth. The last time I checked, the thingy required the server to store the user auth data. So Firebase Auth does store, is a user store and does store everything, but you do have complete access over that, importing and exporting users. For Firebase Auth to work, we do need to store the user information. So I'm not exactly sure of your use case, but hit me up. I'm _David East on Twitter, and I'd be happy to answer more questions there, or just join me for the next Firebase Friday. This was super fun, everybody. I really enjoyed doing this. The next week, unless anyone changes my mind, what I think I'm going to do next week is do the GitHub Actions integration with Firebase hosting. We're going to do the preview channels. We're going to send up new URLs and have it all work on GitHub. So we'll send a PR in that'll kick off a new preview channel, and then we merge. It'll go back to our live site. So that's what I was thinking about doing. So if anyone else has any other requests, like I said, hit me up on Twitter. But that is all for Firebase Fridays. That was awesome. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you all next week.